Hi, I'm astrologer Penny Dix, and welcome to Wednesday, the 26th of March, and another Astrobite. And today's is between Mars, our planet of fire, action, energy, assertion. Mars is making a hard square. That's challenging. To Chiron, our wounded healer, our centaur. Let's see what this energy is all about. But firstly, before I launch into that, I just want to mention that some of you have said that you get fed up when I talk psychology, or if I talk about these, a word for the day, which I always try and link in meaningfully with the astrology of the day and the quotes I give. Let me know in the chat whether you like it and want it to remain, or you don't like it and you don't want it to remain. Personally, I really enjoy doing it. And you have to remember, I'm an astrologer and my background is in psychotherapy. So I'm very much a psychologically based astrologer. And there are a lot of astrologers who bring in the whole element of self-development and psychological growth with astrology. Astrology is a perfect tool for psychological growth. And that is why many astrologers now have that psychological background as well. Remember, astrology is not seeing into the future. It is giving you the trends and energies of the various transits and aspects, how they relate to the world in general, how they relate to your own personal natal chart, and what is the most likely experience one can have of this energy, how you can use it to your best advantage. I think it's important that sometimes we remind ourselves of the use of astrology and how empowering it can be, and that it isn't a per se horoscope fortune telling tool. I am, however, an intuitive astrologer, so I do get impressions, I sense things, I feel things, and a lot of you out there will also have developed this capacity as Neptune has been through Pisces over the last 14 or so years. You will have learnt and become far more spiritually and psychically aware. And, it's a very personal thing, because in my kind of understanding, or how I feel about how things work in time, is that we have many timelines that lie ahead of us, and that these timelines are kind of at every single minute and moment and second of the day, we are at one of those points of that particular timeline that we can choose, most of the time unconsciously, to go down. Astrology really kind of displays to you, shows to you the best use of the energy for the timeline down which you wish to progress, of the things that you want to manifest in your life. So I just wanted to bring that in as a kind of little reminder and a heads up of how I feel astrology can be useful. And I am aware that we have a lot of people who really get a lot of personal growth and self-development out of astrology and Astrobites and the words of the day and the quotes that I give. So I'm sorry that there are some of you that don't enjoy that part. As it's the second half of the video and you don't like it, stop listening. And as a friend of mine said, you can't please all of the people all of the time, but you can please some of the people some of the time. So there we go. I love what I do, and that's why I tend to bring in this element of, which I think is very helpful, self-development. But please let me know in the chat. Now let's get on with today's Astrobite as I bring that first waxing lyrical part to a close. Now, Mars, our planet of energy and action and assertion that is direct, remember, in the sign of Cancer, is squaring Chiron and really squaring all the other energies that are in Aries at the moment. Basically, we've got retrograde Venus, retrograde Mercury, and the Sun. And we've also got Eris there, conjunct Chiron. So we have this absolute kind of real powerful surge of energy in the sign of Aries, soon to be joined by Neptune. And with Mars squaring this energy, it's asking us to really kind of look, I think, at the vulnerable side of ourselves, at our emotional side, because remember, Cancer is a sign that expresses itself through emotions and is a very protective and nurturing sign. You see, this is where I feel, as I go in depth into the meaning and kind of quality of, say, the sign of Cancer, where the psychological side can be so beneficial. So maybe what is happening is that some of you, whilst Mars is going through Cancer, are struggling with the whole concept, because Mars is swimming against the tide, trying to get back into the sign of Leo, which is a fire sign, and it's going to arrive there soon in April. Mars will be back into Leo, but it's squaring Aries. Now, Aries is the sign it rules. So with Chiron in Aries, we have our wounds, our vulnerabilities exposed on the surface for us to feel exposed, for us to feel lacking in confidence, to feel our independence is threatened, to feel that our whole identity is put into question. And what can happen with this Mars energy as it squares Chiron and these other cosmic bodies is that it creates that tension and frustration, and it can erupt today in unprovoked anger. Actually, you know what I'm doing, which I always find fascinating with hindsight? My little presentation of showing you my kind of slight irritation that some of you are not comfortable with the aspect that I bring in of the psychological development we can learn through astrology. And the word for the day is I'm doing Mars square Mars square Chiron, because it's as if the commentary that does not like some of the content that I produce is deeply wounded Chiron in Aries, and it kind of undermines my sense of power and security. And so that I'm airing that frustration, that kind of, irritation by taking a stand. So what are you going to take a stand about today? To give the wounds that we carry, these deep Chiron wounds, a chance to heal, a chance to be exposed, to expose that vulnerable side of ourselves, to allow ourselves to really kind of show what we're made of. Let me know in the comment section how you are experiencing today, and if there are any knee-jerk reactions that you're noticing against either real or imagined kind of attacks against you or slights. Because I think we will experience that sense of emotional frustration, as if we are finding it difficult to assert our self. Because, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, where Chiron is about the self. It's about the I am. And we might feel very guilty if we actually express our feelings and show that vulnerability, or show our inability to conceal frustration and irritation. And I think that the benefit of this is that by bringing it out into the open, we can gain the healing by learning to balance that kind of sensitivity with courage, and see our emotional responses as a source of power rather than of weakness, pulling in the energy of the opposite sign of Aries, which is Libra, which is about balance and harmony and truth and honesty. So I think it's about healing deep-seated insecurities by finding ways to express our feelings and to show that in a healthy and constructive way. So it's about facing fears of rejection, of getting a reaction, of people saying, I don't agree, or I don't like what you're saying. So in fact, what I am doing is acting out the whole of this transit. I am presenting myself, in a sense, as Chiron, with my inner wound, my wound that desires to be whole and healed and perfect, which of course it never can be. And the Mars square is picking the scab off, and it's oozing again, and the pain is coming in. So these deep-seated wounds that we have from Chiron often relate to childhood. And it's only by working through what they represent, which is why I bring in the psychological side to astrology, that we can learn to heal and grow through our ability to reflect, to look at, to learn from. I think that Chiron reveals the nature of the wound by the placement in where Aries is in your chart. So wherever you find Aries in your chart, let's take, for example, maybe Aries is your 4th house of home and family. Then in that case, the wounds are about family and history, and it's about your ancestry. It's family relationships that are perhaps kept hidden and dysfunctional and are painful. So I think it helps a bit just to remind ourselves of who Chiron was. You know, he was a Greek centaur. He was known for his healing abilities and his wisdom. He was very kind and intelligent, and on the whole, most centaurs were a little bit brusque and not really very kind. They were, you know, could be quite obnoxious. And so even though he had these healing skills and this wisdom around him, he had a wound that was so deep, it could never heal. This symbolizes the deepest pain that we carry. And what is being highlighted today by Mars squaring Chiron, taking that scab off, is that our innermost wounds can be our greatest source of wisdom and growth. So this is why Chiron is kind of known in astrology as the wounded healer. And, you know, it's an interesting energy. And I think that, you know, it will be around for a few days. We will have already been feeling it building up over the last few days. And I'm actually recording this Astrobite the day before. So, of course, actually Mars is already squaring Chiron. Hence, perhaps my ability with this kind of four-dimensional sort of sense that I get, where I kind of become immersed in the cosmos and feel the energy of Mars knocking off the scab of my Chiron wound and exposing me and giving me the words, the voice to express my disappointment that some people are not able to see the benefit, the true gold of what astrology can provide. So the word I've chosen for today is vulnerability, because I think there is something about this energy today that can really bring out that vulnerability in us. Brené Brown said, and also I'll just add that if you don't want to listen to the quotes and the word of the day, vulnerability, thank you so much for joining me for today. And I look forward to seeing you next time. So for those of you that do want to stick around for the quotes, hello, let's give them a go. Brené Brown said, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. I think vulnerability is also about courage and being brave, because as you know, I'm on the whole a very nice person. At least I seem to come across as a very nice person, and I don't often express irritation or disappointment in maybe the lack of understanding or lack of appreciation of the content I give. So actually, to show the vulnerability of saying what I'm saying today actually takes a lot of courage, because I'm also opening myself up to more potential criticism and people going, unsubscribe from this awful woman. But hopefully not too many of you will do that. Let's see what Chris Jammy said, because he said, to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable. To make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. How true is that? And that is what can be gained through understanding the power of the Mars square Chiron today. Brené Brown again said, owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. And to stand up and be counted and say, this is me and this is what I believe in. And take it or leave it. This is the way I am. And she's popular today because here we have, I think she's a she, we have yet again another quote from her. Brené Brown, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. Paulo Coelho said, the strongest love is the love that can demonstrate its fragility. Haruki Murakami said, what happens when people open their hearts? They get better. That's why it's always good to have an open mind. I think there was a quote I gave the other day about a mind should be like a parachute, always open, because if it's not, you'll probably crash to the ground. It was something similar to that, but it's the same kind of principle. I think the greatest gift we can give ourselves is curiosity, inquiry, and learning. And Dan Millman said, you don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. Oh, yes. I think we can all relate to that. I can certainly relate to that inner narrative, that inner chatter that carries on and gets so much in our way. And finally, we have yet another quote from Brené Brown. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be Let me start again. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And I guess that's what I do in these Astrobites. You get me. Raw, naked, and vulnerable, and open, honest and true. Which one word covers. You get the authentic me. On that note, thank you so much for joining me. Well, have an interesting day. As I said the other day, I think it's good to have interesting days. And you know, if it is a day that starts out a bit you can always choose to make it interesting. You just have to take action. And whilst Mars is in Cancer, it can make it feel a bit difficult to take that action. Makes us want to kind of hide away at home. Don't do that. Go out and live your life today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, if you'd like to have a session with me, go to my website, pennydix.com, and email me on penny@pennydix.com. and we can mutually discuss a suitable time to accommodate our vastly different time zones for our session. And on that note, I'll say thank you again. I look forward to seeing you for another Astrobite very soon. Bye for now. Bye.